Hello and welcome to this special edition of Living in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm Evan Deal with Elite Icon Team and eXp Realty, and on today's episode, we're going to get personal. I'm going to talk about my story, why I moved to Indianapolis, and why I continue to live here, though I have moved. So I'd love to touch on that. Before we get to that, if you like this channel and you want to support us, leave a like on this video, hit the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so that you're kept in the loop every time we upload a new video. You can stay in the loop on the Circle City, Indianapolis, this place we love and call home. And I'm going to tell you why I call it home right now. So I wanted to use this video to really get to know each other a little bit. So I wanted to tell you my background, my story, where I'm coming from, so we could get to know each other a little bit. Because how do you have a relationship without conversation? So I don't want this to be just about me. Share your story below. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to keep that conversation going and get to know each other. But in this video, I'm going to walk through kind of where I come from. And if you know anything about this channel, if you've watched my videos, you know I love Indiana. I love this state. I am a through and through Hoosier, and I've lived in different places in this state, and I've had different environments growing in, but I've always wanted to live in Indiana, and that's not necessarily true for everyone. I bet a lot of people from Indiana that are maybe they want warmer weather or something during the winter, and I get that, but it really is a special state. And I don't know, let me just walk through my background. So I'm from rural Indiana. So I'm from a country called Brazil. No, just kidding. I'm from a city called Brazil in Indiana. So a small town, about 8,000 people, and population stayed consistent over like the last 100 years. So right around that 8,000 mark. So my high school, between a couple cornfields, but great school. Two-time marching band state champ, no big deal. But yeah, that's where I come from. It's a really nice area. There's tons of agriculture, there's forestry, pretty flat, as parts of Indiana are, but really a nice place to live on the whole. But you see me talk about Indianapolis all the time. I've lived in Indianapolis for the past decade, but that's not where I come from. I come from the rural parts of Indiana. So we traveled all around. My family loves to travel, and we would go to all sorts of different parts of the country. I'd been to all 50 states by the time I was 14. And, even in Indiana, we liked to travel. We'd go to, McCormick's Creek State Park. We'd go to Turkey Run. I went there for camp a few times. And there's just all sorts of interesting places out in the country. The biggest city near me was Terre Haute, which isn't that big in the grand scheme of things. I think it's like 50,000 people. Yeah, compared to Indianapolis, that's small. But for me growing up, that was a big city near me. But that's where I come from. My roots are in sort of the heartland of Indiana. And so whenever you hear my perspective on things, maybe I'm talking about the east side and how amazing all the fields are, or the forests in the northeast around Guys. That's where I'm coming from. That's my upbringing, the area I come from. And not only did I grow up in Indiana, but also I went to school in Indiana. So you probably gathered this by now if you've watched this channel for any amount of time, but I went to Indiana University. Go Hoosiers, IU. But I'm sorry, I'm so corny. But I can't help but be corny. I'm from Indiana. We love corn. Anyway, so yeah, I went to IU, actually Kelley School of Business. So, I was there 4 years, lived in Bloomington. I love Bloomington. I still try to make it back at least once or twice a year. It's a really beautiful area. And if you're unfamiliar with it, it's just rolling hills everywhere. There's trees all over the place. The entire campus is limestone. It's consistently voted as one of the most beautiful campuses for any university in the country. And it really is a special college town. But being there for 4 years really gave me an appreciation of southern Indiana. And it's very different than the northern half of the state. The northern half, there was a glacier like thousands of years ago that kind of came down and it stopped about halfway through Indiana, and it sort of flattened the top half. But the bottom half is still really hilly, and you see that especially in Bloomington. And there are other areas too that I've really grown to love over the years, like Nashville and really everywhere in Brown County, French Lick and the surrounding areas like Paoli. They're just really special places in the South. And I got to really experience that during my time at Bloomington. But when I was, applying for colleges, I loved this state so much that I never really considered anywhere else. When I was applying, I applied at one place. And I knew I had the grades and test scores to do it, and so that was it for me. I wanted to be a part of Hoosier Nation, and I wanted to move within my state, but stay within my state because it's a special place to me. And not everyone does that. A lot of people go to school to get away from home, but Indiana really is my home, and I love it. And I wouldn't want to go somewhere else long term, because it's a great place to live. I talk about it all the time for all the areas around Indianapolis, and I'm not spitting out lies here. It really is a wonderful place to live. There's really great pockets all over the state, whether you're looking for city living or country living, suburb living, whatever your style is. Indiana has something for that. So anyway, back to the story. After college, I wanted to work in Indianapolis. I knew I wanted to work in Indianapolis, and of all the places I interviewed at, I couldn't find a good place to work in Indianapolis. I wasn't getting a lot of direct fits because my degree's in marketing, and I was like, I want a marketing role, and nobody was hiring fresh college grads at the time for marketing roles. So I ended up with an analytics position, but it wasn't in Indiana. It took me far from home, so I had to train in Austin, Texas. When my dad and I drove down to Texas. I can't even talk. We drove down to Texas, and when we were there, we stepped out of the car and the heat just smacked me in the face, and I was like, well, I'm not in Indiana anymore. We have humidity here, but Texas heat is something else. It was everything's bigger in Texas, even the heat. So I worked down there for a little bit, and then I got placed from that job in North Chicago. So I had a client up North Chicago. I wasn't too far from the Indiana border, all things considered. You pop around Chicago once you get through the traffic, and then all of a sudden you're in the region in Indiana. You're passing Gary and Merrillville and all those places in the north. And on my way home, I would usually drive by Lafayette, and I was just like, Lafayette. It's funny because I'm wearing like Purdue colors right now, but I'm an Indiana guy, so I gotta get my digs in at Purdue. But anyway, so yeah, I lived there for like a year and a half, a couple of years, and but I had this like yearning in me to get back home because, like I said, Indiana is a special place for me. Whenever I would drive up to Indianapolis when I was like a kid or teenager, I would hop on 70. I'd be driving by like Eli Lilly, or I'd be driving by the RCA Dome, and then later Lucas Oil, and it was just a fit, and I knew it was a fit. There's a special quality when you're driving by Indianapolis's downtown. It's not really sprawling like a lot of other cities downtown. It's tight and compact. We don't have as many skyscrapers as you might see in other skylines. But it is a huge city. Indianapolis is a sprawling city. It fills up almost all of Marion County, which is kind of the center county of Indiana. And there's just something special about the city, and you know it when you're here. Especially if you're not from Indianapolis, you can really appreciate it for what it is. Not just Indianapolis, but the surrounding cities as well, like Greenwood and Avon and Carmel and Noblesville. They all have something special about them. And some of these places for me when I was a kid, even though I only lived like an hour and a half away from most of them, it was almost like mythical to me. We'd play these schools in soccer. I remember we drove up to Garin Catholic and played them in soccer. They beat us really badly. That's okay. And I was like, oh wow, look, I'm in Indianapolis. And we'd marching band state finals would always be in the RCA Dome, and then Lucas Oil later, and it was like, wow, look at this. I'd be wheeling my marimba on the streets of Indianapolis, like through the downtown, and it's just it took on a special quality for me. It was somewhere I didn't get to go all the time, but when I did, it was always a cool trip. So I remember we went to the Children's Museum too when I was in school, and that was an awesome field trip. Actually, they had a N64 back in the day. If you're getting old like me, but seeing an N64 during school hours was amazing. So I don't know, maybe I attribute all these positive memories to the city itself, but it just speaks to how cool of a place it is, especially, when you're from a small town, like I am. I love small town living. I love the rural areas of Indiana, but for me personally, it was a real call to Indianapolis, because I knew that's where the opportunity would be for me someday. So anyway, after my first job, I moved down here, started working in marketing, had a few different roles with different companies in marketing, and I worked downtown. I worked remotely. I've worked all over the place in Indianapolis. So it's everything's good except for the traffic, I guess. The traffic is terrible, especially when we have construction, which is often on the interstates. So it's really, I say the traffic's terrible, but it's really not compared to other major metros. Like when I lived in Chicago, it's not even comparable. It's not comparable to LA or New York or like the major metros. When I told you I lived in Austin, like the Austin infrastructure, at least at that time, was nowhere near catching up with how the population was growing. And so I had to drive like a mile to work, and it would take half an hour at least every day. It's not like that in Indianapolis, but it does get backed up during peak times, especially with construction. We just love construction. If you're a construction worker, I cannot imagine having a safer job than working in Indianapolis. Like constant construction all the time. I don't know, maybe I chose the wrong line of work because construction's always going here. But whether it's building stuff or doing roads. Anyway, so yeah, I moved here like 10 years ago, and originally I've always lived in Indianapolis since I've lived here. I've lived near different suburbs, but I've technically lived in the city this whole time. For most of my time here, I lived in an area called Franklin Township. Franklin Township is in the southeast part of Indianapolis, and it really feels like a suburb. I haven't talked about it too much on this channel because, I tend to spend more time speaking about the suburbs, and when I talk about the city, I talk about it as a whole. But this is a specific area of the city that it's very residential in nature. There's tons of housing, both existing housing, and there's still plenty of new construction in Franklin Township, and a lot of it is actually more affordable than what you'll see, in places like Westfield, Fishers, McCordsville. For the most part, you're going to have lower prices in Franklin Township, and that area is it kind of reminds me of home in a lot of ways. There's even though the population's way higher, but there's a lot of fields nearby, and then you can pop over to Shelby County, you'll see even more corn and soybean fields, but it's historically very agrarian there, but that is where the city, like the Indianapolis city population, is shifting over time. That area continues to grow. Like Franklin Central is a huge high school at this point in Indianapolis, and but it has a very suburban feel, because while it's still technically part of Indianapolis, it's not like, you're not seeing skyscrapers. You're more likely to see a cornfield next to your house than you are, to see a huge development. So that's where I lived most of my time in Indianapolis. I'd work downtown, so I'd pop up the interstate and head down to where my office was. But it's interesting because it's city living, but it's not city living. But thankfully, that's where I met my wife, who you see sometimes on this channel, Jocelyn. She is one of, if not the best realtor in Indianapolis. I would love to be a realtor, but if you don't choose me, honestly choose Jocelyn, because she is the absolute best. She is a rock star. I know that term is cliched, but she can also sing really well, so I'm going to call her a rock star, because she's really good at everything: listing, buying, investing, whatever. So I met her in Franklin Township. She's not from Franklin Township either. Maybe she'll share her story sometime. She's kind of from all over, but mostly from Richmond. So we came from opposite sides of the state. She's over there in Wayne County. I'm from Clay County. And, kind of met in the middle of I-70 instead of the ends of it. And so we got to meet. We actually lived in the same apartment complex, funny enough, and happened to meet there. But maybe we'll share that full story sometime, because it's a really cool one. But in that, we met. We ended up having kids, and I guess got married first. I skipped that stuff, but yeah, met, got married, had kids, got a house. Had a starter home there in Franklin Township. After a few years, we wanted to upgrade, so we built new. So I understand that construction process, what it's like to manage the project, design it, and that's why I try to make recommendations when we're walking through these new builds. Things like finishing out your closets. I know you've heard me say it ad infinitum, but it's important. It makes a big difference in your house. Planning out properly what you're doing, what's going to add value to it, as well as functionality for you. So built new, did every project you can think of there. Did a deck project, basement project, closets, and really added a ton of value to the house, so that by the time we sold it, it was the highest house sale in that neighborhood. That was a combination of the value adds we did to the house, as well as Jocelyn and mine. I'm going to give her more credit, but we worked together on it, but I'll give her more credit because she's the best, honestly. So we, and our skill in selling and listing it and positioning it on the market, it was the highest home sale in that area, which was amazing because there's still new construction. So, choosing between our home, which was a few years old at that point, and new construction, and we were able to sell it right away, because it was a standout even amongst the new homes being built in the area. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, so we lived in Franklin Township for educational opportunities for our daughters. We decided to move up north a little bit. Nothing against the schools in the south. There's great schools in Franklin Township. Just check out the rankings for the area. There's just specific schooling we wanted them to be able to take access in up north. So we moved not all the way to the north side, but sort of in the northeast area of Indianapolis. We love trees. We love water. We love kind of nature, and there's really great nature all over Indianapolis. But one thing I always tell you on this channel, and I want to repeat it again: look for lot. I cannot recommend that highly enough, because you cannot change the location or the actual dirt under your house. So that's what we do. We always buy for lot. When we built our new build house, we found the best lot. It probably in Franklin Township. I'm not kidding. It was on a natural farm pond in a community. As far as HOA, community lots, you couldn't have gotten better. Spectacular view. Not an artificial pond, but a natural one with animals and trees, and it was just incredible. And then when we moved, we also looked for a lot, and now we've got a little more land, more trees, and you can make changes to your house, whether right away or over time, but you can't change that lot near as much or near as easily. And especially if you're moving into a community, you'd need to look at HOA restrictions as well. So just keep that in mind and balance out the functionality of your house versus your lot, because that's what we do. And we have to balance out the needs for our family and what we're looking to do, where we're looking to live. But I've really not lived in a bad place in Indianapolis. This is an area that I really love. I love living in Franklin Township. I love living where we live now, and I can't recommend it highly enough. I've got family all over the city too. I've got family that live, in downtown Indianapolis. I've got family on the west side. I've got family on the south side. So we've got people all over the place. We've got people in historic neighborhoods, people in, newer construction neighborhoods as well. So I'm very, very familiar, both from a work and personal standpoint, with all of the areas in and around the city. And we just love to work with people, no matter where you're looking, whether you're looking in Westfield or Bargersville, you're looking in Danville or Shelbyville, wherever you're looking in and around Indianapolis, even across Indiana as well. We would love to work with you, whether it's me or Jocelyn. We just love this state. We love the people here, and we love getting to know your story. So if you've enjoyed this at all, getting to know each other a little bit, do me a couple favors. One is, please leave a like on this video. It really helps people find our channel, and it broadens that conversation to bring other people in. Hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so that you're kept in the loop on everything happening in and around the Circle City, Indianapolis, this place that obviously after this we call home. And not only that, but share your story in the comments. So if you live in Indianapolis, let me know, like, what brought you here? How did you move here? You know, do you like it here? If you don't like it here, why not? If you do like it here, why do you like it living here? I'd love to hear from you. And if you don't live here yet, let me know. If you need help moving, if you're starting to do research, if you're starting to do that moving process, let me know, seriously. All my contact info is below. You can drop a comment, you can text me. The best thing to do is to set up a video meeting so we can talk like this and I can learn your story in real time. But yeah, definitely just share below. This is a community and it's a space to just profess love for the Hoosier state and the capital city they're in. So excited to talk to you. Hope this was kind of a fun episode, very different than what we normally do. We'll be back with more coverage around the city in the next one. See you then.